from the Media Store, you will be given the camera bag, which will contain the camera body. We have numerous camera bodies, both Canon and Nikon. There will also be a battery charger and a memory card reader. The camera should have a fully charged battery and will also have a card contained within it. There is a checklist in each camera bag that identifies the equipment, and please ensure that you check this before you return the camera bag to the stores. You will need to book a lens at the same time as you book the camera. We have a number of lenses available in store for whatever purpose you want, and these range from zoom lenses, which enables you to change the focal length and reframe the shot very easily. It's very versatile. And we have a number of prime lenses. So prime lenses are fixed, they have no zoom function, and are great when you're working with shallow depth of field and wider apertures. This is an 85mm lens, great for portrait. This is a 50mm prime lens, and it's great for hand holding and working under low light conditions. So, handling the camera. We recommend that you use the camera strap to wrap around your wrist so you can support the camera, as these are quite heavy. It's probably not best to put it around your neck. And also, with the camera itself, there's a grip on the right hand side. If you grip this firmly and support the lens when you're shooting, and then the same grip can support the camera body and your hand supporting the lens when you're in portrait mode. You will need to place the lens on the camera body, and to do so you will need to remove the body cap, the lens back cap, and of course the lens cap. And you will notice on the lens that there is a red dot, and there is a red dot on the camera body. These should be aligned, and in the case of a Canon camera, if you twist the lens clockwise, to lock. Here we have a 24-105mm lens. When in manual focus mode, the focus ring is used to gain focus. The zoom can be controlled with the rear zoom ring. The switch here is between autofocus and manual focus. And some lenses have a stabilizer function. When this is turned on, this can reduce any camera shake, particularly when using telephoto lenses or macro lenses. To turn the camera on, press the switch behind the mode dial here to on. The mode dial allows you to select the various different modes. To the right of the camera, we have the shutter button, which you would press to take a photo, or slightly depress to gain autofocus. We have the main control dial here, an LCD display with buttons here for, among other things, white balance, the drive or autofocus, and ISO. The rear of the camera can look quite complex, and I'm going to navigate through this for you. So if I turn the camera on, if I press the info button, this will bring up key information about the photographs or the images we're making, virtual horizon, and settings on the camera. If you press the Q button, the settings are highlighted and you can use the multi-controller to scroll through these and adjust as necessary. So if I wanted to change the ISO, I could use the rear control to adjust the ISO, or the front main dial to do the same. I prefer to use the EVF, Eye Viewfinder, but some people like to use the live view mode, which has a stills and movie option. Simply identify the mode you want, press start, and the control settings will be displayed as usual, and use the camera in exactly the way as you would when using the Eye Viewfinder. To switch to movie mode, switch across to the movie icon, and the only difference is with this is if you want to start a recording, you simply press to start a recording and press there to stop the recording. It's a good idea to set up the camera prior to use, and to do this, press the menu button, and this will bring up a number of options that are controlled by the main control dial and the rear control dial here. Okay, so the first thing to do is to scroll across to the yellow menu and the tool icon, and to format the card. This will remove any images or information contained on the card and sets it up nicely for you to record correctly. So simply highlight format card, press set, identify the card that you need to format, and scroll to select OK. Image quality. By default, this is set to large JPEG. If I press the set button, this brings up the options. There are JPEG options, large, medium and small, and you can see the file size and pixel dimensions at the top there. We recommend always shooting in RAW at the highest quality, and we can see there it's a 50 megabyte image. However, should space be an issue, you can reduce the quality to medium or small RAW options. RAW will give you the maximum colour and detail quality available from the camera. Colour space. We recommend using the Adobe RGB colour space, as this offers a wider representation of colours. ISO is controlled by pressing the Q button and scrolling through and using the dial to switch between various different settings. It's recommended that you use the lowest ISO possible, as this will give better image detail. Increasing to higher ISOs can create noise within an image. You can also select the ISO button at the front of the camera and scroll through your ISO settings and select that way. The mode dial enables you to select various different modes. We recommend using manual mode, indicated with an M, and this allows the main dial to control the shutter speed, the rear dial to control the aperture, and the exposure meter will guide your exposure from underexposure to overexposure. AV, or aperture priority mode, means that you can select your aperture and the shutter speed will be adjusted accordingly to give you an average exposure. Should you wish to compensate your exposure, you can overexpose or underexpose using the rear dial. TV, or shutter speed priority, does the same in reverse, and you use the main dial to adjust both settings with an average exposure, and if you need to compensate, you use the rear dial to adjust the aperture to compensate accordingly. Finally, the bulb is a mode for long exposure settings. You would use a remote cable or remote control to take an exposure for any duration that you want. So, as well as using the Q button to scroll through the options, there are also 4 easily accessible buttons at the top here. The first one, on the left, is for the metering mode, and this enables you to switch between evaluative metering, partial, spot, and center weighted average. And the white balance enables you to scroll through from auto white balance, daylight, shade, cloudy, tungsten, fluorescent, flash. These are all presets and designed to work effectively with similar lighting conditions. Custom, we will look at shortly, and Kelvin enable you to tailor your white balance settings. With Kelvin selected, you need to go into the menu, select white balance, and here you can adjust the Kelvin rating to match the light conditions you're under. This is useful so if you know what the colour temperature is and you want consistency. To set a custom white balance, it's a good idea to change the mode to an appropriate preset. Then turn off the autofocus mode if you're in autofocus, and make sure that you fill the frame of the camera with something neutral or white. Make sure you slightly overexpose to compensate for how reflective the white is, and take a shot. This serves as a reference image for the next stage, which is to now bring up white balance, select custom, go back to the menu where it says custom white balance, press set. The camera will automatically search for the last photograph that's been taken. You select that photograph, press set, use the white balance data. The camera is now set to take photographs under the current light conditions, which are fairly neutral, as if you were working under daylight conditions. The next button along enables us to select between one shot, AI focus and AI servo. One shot is great for stills photography where nothing is moving. However, if you're using working with moving subjects, AI focus and AI servo are recommended. The drive mode allows us to select from single shooting, high speed continuous, low speed continuous, silent single shooting, silent continuous shooting, and then there are self-timer options for 10 and 2 seconds, and you would also select these options if you need to use a remote. When using autofocus, you can change the AF points by pressing the button to the right of the camera here, and the MFN button next to the main dial can be used to toggle through the options. These will expand the autofocus points dependent on what you're shooting and offer many more options. AF point selection can be tailored to your needs, so you can move the autofocus point around the frame dependent on what you're photographing. Also, by expanding the AF point selection, this offers flexibility to focus on a wider area, including options for the full frame, which is useful for moving subjects. Now it's time to take some photographs. So I've set up in the manual mode, which means that I can adjust the shutter speed and aperture. So I'm going to set an aperture of f5, and the first shot I will take will be an average exposure or zeroed. Gain autofocus by touching the shutter button and continue pressing the button to take the shot. The image is reviewed, and if I want to press the playback button, I can see the image. So the exposure isn't bad with this. An example of overexposure is if I overexpose by one stop, take a shot, and we can see that this image is much brighter. If I underexpose by one stop, we can see that the image is now much darker. The dots in between are third stop increments, and these allow you to fine-tune your exposure accordingly. If I press the playback button, then we can use the rear dial to scroll through the options, and we can see the results of the different exposures. If I want to zoom into one of the images, I press the magnifying button, and then I can use the front dial to zoom in and out of the image. If I wish to delete an image, I simply highlight the image to be deleted, press the waste bucket button, scroll to erase, and press set. Now you've downloaded your images and returned the card back to the camera, it's a really good idea to format the card again, and this ensures that any of your precious images are deleted and removed from the card. To remove or replace the memory card, you need to pull back the cover to the right hand side of the camera, and if a compact flash card is installed, you press the small grey button to release the card and carefully remove. Make sure that when you return the card, the holes in the bottom of the card go in first, and the label is facing towards the back, and then carefully put this in. It should enter without any resistance, and press to release the button, then shut the door. To remove an SD card, simply press the card, it will pop out, and then you can remove the card. And to replace, make sure that the contacts go in first, push into the slot with the label facing outwards, and press in, close the cover. To remove the battery, release the catch for the door of the battery compartment, then release the battery by pressing the white latch and carefully remove the battery. When you return, make sure that the contacts go in first, push down and lock the door.